I'm going to kick it off here. And before I introduce Kate Baldwin with the SPCA, we just want to share a little bit about why we are doing this and how this sort of came about. And if you can believe it, and I have some stats right here, that the benefits of pet therapy actually date back to the 9th century. So this is nothing new. In the 1970s, Boris Levinson had put out, he was a clinician who truly put out some amazing data in regards to the benefits of pets and an individual's mental health. And we are so pleased to welcome Kate Baldwin, who is with the Virginia Beach SPCA, and her title is Chief Communications and Community Relations Officer. She's been with them for about 3.5 years. And welcome, Kate, and thank you so much for being willing to join us and sharing this really, any pet lover will agree, this amazing opportunity for all of our mental wellness. So thank you for coming.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here, and I always love talking about pets. It's central to what I do every day, and I, as a human, can certainly recognize the benefits of pets and what they do for our lives. And so I think this conversation is important, and I'm glad that I'm here to have it with all of you. So thank you.
Excellent. And so as we've done in the past, one of the things is we have a questions that I just want to pose to you, if that's all right, to get some of your perspective. And as everyone knows, this is also being shown on Facebook Live, as well as being recorded for future viewing. And because I sometimes forget to say things, please don't forget to join us for our June event, and that is going to be around the LGBT community and mental health. So please put that on your calendar, register to join us then. But before that, this is most important. One of the things that we had been questioning, asking is, how can pet companionship actually improve someone's mental health and mental wellness? What does the SPCA you have to say on that front?
Well, first and foremost, what's central to what we do is we connect people and pets. That's part of our vision statement for the Virginia Beach SPCA, and it's part of our mission and what we believe that we are here to do. And central to that is the sense of connection and feeling connected to another being, for lack of a better word. And so the companionship that pets provide us, whether it's a cat or a dog or a small animal, whatever relationship we establish, is incredibly healing to our experience of life. And so the first part being loneliness is certainly during the past year, a lot of us were subject to being alone a lot more than we typically are. And so having another presence in your home is incredibly important to battling those feelings of loneliness, and from loneliness can stem those feelings of depression and anxiety, just depending on who we are and what we're experiencing on any given day. And so we recognize that the value that a pet has can just help with that number one issue of feeling alone or not feeling alone because you have a pet. And so those connections, that sense of companionship, is incredibly important. And then from that place, if depending on whether you're a cat person or a dog person, there's different things that come along with those species. And if we look at a dog, for example, and you have to take your dog for a walk, or most people do. And so getting out of the house and moving the body and breathing the fresh air and potentially engaging with neighbors if they're on your route when you're walking, all of those things are little steps in towards feeling like you're part of a community, and also feeling like you're out in nature, to other things that are really important to our social, emotional, and mental well-being. And then just the sense of anxiety. There's studies that show that petting a cat or petting a dog, the studies that I'm familiar with are the ones that have to do with the sound of purring and what that does to our blood pressure and what that does to our nervous system. And so there's a lot of different data out there depending on what research you're looking for, but they all kind of point to the same thing, that the experience of being with an animal, petting an animal, engaging an animal does something to our nervous system that brings us back to a baseline. which is important.
I'm sorry, but have I ever heard anything, I mean, I think I have, about that fish being giving a sense of calmness wherever they are in a room and you're in a room, that's what they provide?
I've heard that before.
I've
I've not
heard
seen
it.
any science behind it, but it makes sense. I mean, water and just the sound too, it's calming. It's almost like white noise. And white noise is really important in meditation practice in the sense that it helps kind of drown out other sounds that tend to distract us and keep us in our mental chatter. And so having some noise, like they've definitely said fish tank noise can help drown out some of our thoughts.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Has there ever been a service cat?
Oh man, as much as I would like to say yes, because I am a cat person, there has not been a service cat. The only species that are recognized as service animals are canines and miniature horses, believe it or not. They have been given, they've been recognized by federal government to perform certain tasks. I'm not particularly familiar with them, but I do know that it's just those two species that are recognized by the government in the sense of a service animal. When you get into the emotional support animal, that's a different conversation, and that's not limited to a specific species or a specific breed, but to be a service animal, it's specifically dogs. Cats are
Okay.
very smart though, but they just are not. Although there are circus cats. I don't know if y'all saw it on X Factor or I don't know which one it was, but there were some wild cats performing some pretty amazing tricks. But I don't know if they're reliable enough.
Okay, and so that, I guess that probably goes in beautifully to another question that we have, is the difference between an emotional support animal, a service animal, a therapy animal, because we've grappled with that at NAMI Coastal Virginia, because we do have individuals that participate in different groups, and for us, there are so many different qualifiers, and we didn't know they were, what the need was. So could you educate us on that?
I can educate you to the degree of which I understand it myself. It's actually a pretty controversial and tricky subject. And so the bottom line is that the federal protections that the government provides to service animals are only provided to service animals, not necessarily to emotional support animals. So service animals being dogs or miniature horses that were trained and certified to do a specific life-saving, potentially task for a person with a disability. Potentially, whether it's helping somebody that's is visually impaired by helping them navigate through, everyday life, or whether it's helping an animal alert the human that it's time for medicine or that they're about to have a seizure. Those things come with very specific training and certification. And because of that, they're allowed in a lot of different environments that pets wouldn't typically be allowed. And so an emotional support animal, while they get a label that relationship is approved by a medical professional, recognizing that somebody that's suffering from or battling from some emotional or mental health challenge would benefit from the presence of a pet, that would have a beneficial presence on that person's experience of the symptoms of whatever it is that they're dealing with. That is as far as that certification goes. They're not necessarily protected by the government. And so where it gets tricky for people like the Virginia Beach SPCA and our side of things is that, for example, we don't actually participate in emotional support animal certification for a couple reasons. Is that we can't guarantee an animal's personality or behavior once they leave our facility. And so unless they go through specific training that's going to prevent them from potentially being triggered by sirens or loud noises or a loud car, if they're out in an environment that's not a typical place where a pet would be, then you're potentially setting the animal up for failure. Because the reason that, for example, if you look at a seeing eye dog, the amount of training that they have to go through is going to make sure that they are going to be stable and well in any environment, because that's what they've been trained for. But if you go adopt a pet and they don't go through those trainings, but you get the certification from your medical health professional that allows you to take them into certain areas without proper training, there's some risk there. And so it's very important that if you do get an emotional support animal for any reason, that you make sure that the reasons that you're going to use that animal, that your animal's trained to be safe in that environment. So it's kind of controversial, but there's a lot of information on the ADA website that breaks down the difference between emotional support animals, service animals, the different protections, and so forth. So I would strongly suggest to look at that website for the most up-to-date and recent information on those types of labels for pets.
Yeah, 'cause our biggest challenge was in that is that for some of those, there's documentation and that piece, and how far do we go as an affiliate, or does an organization go as an affiliate to obviously protect that individual, the pet, the group as a whole. And obviously now with the Zoom and this time that's not an issue right now. But thank you for answering what you know on that front.
Yeah, just
Um,
last week, there was something that went out. I think that over the past, I mean, I don't know, this is a guess, I'd say decade, 5 years, that it's just been an increase in the amount of emotional support animals that are needed. And they are needed by a lot of people, which is important. And I'm certainly not saying that in any way, shape, or form, but there has been some abuse of that label where people try to get around different, housing restrictions, or they want to take their pet on the plane without having to pay for pet fees. And so because of some of this abuse of this really important label, the government is cracking down on it. And there was just an article within the past couple of weeks that they're not recognizing emotional support animals on flights anymore. And so if I have my information correct, that only service animals can have the fees waived, the pet fees waived, and can travel on board with their companion. Any other pet needs to travel like a pet. You can certainly pay your fee to have the pet fly with you in the carrier under the seat in front of you, but they can't be in your lap anymore like they used to be, like my cat wants to be right now.
right. All right. What is your cat's name?
That is Momo. Momo is short for Monster. We got her in Chicago. I used to live in Chicago, and we named her Alice Capone because we thought she was a cool mobster cat. But Alice was way too sweet of a name for her because she's a super tough Chicago cat.
Oh, that's excellent. All right. So speaking of super tough or like super sweet, are there better breeds of dogs or better breeds of cats or better breeds of animals for an individual to maybe be to look to that are known for their particularly supportive countenance? Countenance.
Well, while there are, so every animal is unique. We like to say that at the shelter. And so, because some people do become attached to an idea of a certain breed and what maybe if they had, like I had a golden retriever when I was a kid, and I've always loved golden retrievers because of the one specific dog that I had, but all golden retrievers aren't the same. There's certainly some traits that are similar, but they're all unique. And that's important to recognize that the most important part is a relationship that you develop with your pet. And that can only be established in real time with the animal that you're seeing. But as far as emotional support, I think that the most important thing to consider is the history of the breed. And so while I can say that any animal could probably serve in any capacity if you have a good relationship with your animal, the most important thing to consider is your lifestyle and whether your lifestyle fits with the lifestyle of the pet that you're interested in. For example, if you live a quiet life in an apartment and you're just live kind of a mellow life, a Siberian Husky is probably not a good fit for your life. While a lot of people look at breeds just because of their look and their appearance, and I mean, Huskies are gorgeous dogs, they're sled dogs, they're work dogs. And so if they're not incredibly active and physically engaged and mentally engaged, they're going to become problematic and they're going to have behavior problems. And then your relationship's going to be tested and they're probably going to end up back in a shelter. I mean, most often we see a lot of adult dogs that are working breeds that were adopted as puppies because people like the idea of, such and such a Husky or a Shepherd puppy, but then realize that their lifestyle isn't actually a good match for that animal. And so it doesn't work out in the long run. So the most important part is less about what whether or not they're going to make a good emotional partner. It's whether or not you're going to have a mutual lifestyle, because if you have a mutual lifestyle that matches and that's a good fit, you will develop a bond that is going to be serving that need for you. It's the bond that serves the need less than the animal, I think I would say.
Okay. And I think that's a really good lifestyle to the breed is a really important piece.
It
Uh,
is. And I mean, there's so many animals that today, cats are different in the sense that cats are very close to their wild heirs. You know, they haven't developed very differently over the years. There's different colors and things, but they all are very, very similar in being cats. But dogs, there are such a variety of breeds, and there's so many hybrid breeds and these unique breeds that exist now. And it's really important to look back and see where they came from, because that is going to be in their DNA. And another, on the flip side of the herding dogs or a quiet life, if you have a really active life and you like to be outside and you like to be out in the summer and you like to run, getting some of those dogs that have, you know, the flat faced dogs with their respiratory systems are different and they have a harder time breathing. So you should definitely not go for long runs with the little Boston Terrier or a boxer that might have a harder time breathing. So it is important for you to really consider your lifestyle, what it is that you want your life to be like, and the activities and the hobbies and the things that you would want to do with your pet, and then find a pet or a breed that's matched with that. I know I just repeated what I said a minute ago, but it's worth repeating.
Sure. And is that something at the SPCA, if an individual, a family comes to look at the potential adoptions, that they can help with their expertise in weighing the pros and cons? And
Absolutely. We
okay,
have a form that everybody, when you come to the shelter, it's just a basic matchmaker questionnaire where we ask about, you know, what your lifestyle is. Is it active? Is it quiet? Do you have children in the home? Do you live in an apartment? Do you like to go running? Do you like to be indoors? All these types of things. And then based on your questions and what it is you're looking for, we introduce you to the who's in our building at the time and see what animals might be a good fit for you, depending on what it is that you're looking for and what you've established your lifestyle to be.
awesome, awesome. And that I think everyone would be very appreciative of that. Sort of change gears just a little bit, um, because we are the National Alliance of Mental Illness, and sometimes with various illnesses, one is depression, that is the mood component. Uh, Animals share those same issues, but
Yeah.
how, as do we, since they can't talk about it, they can't share with us, how can we as pet owners know if our animal is depressed?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we unfortunately see a lot of depression in the shelter, as I'm sure you can imagine. If an animal's been with their family member for a while and for whatever reason they have to come to us, that's a tough thing that they have to navigate this new environment and the loss of their companion. And so we are familiar with depression in cats and dogs. But if a cat's in your home, for example, cats tend to shy away from their humans when they're feeling depressed. They tend to disengage. They may not eat. They like to hide. They might be out of their typical play areas and out of their typical rhythms. Dogs, on the other hand, are a little bit opposite. We call them Velcro dogs when they're feeling a little depressed because they really want to be right by their human. But that being said, they might not want to play catch. They might not want to play toys, but they want to be with their person. And so it's pretty safe to say that if there's any interruption in their normal behavior, then that's worth looking into. For most of us, our pets have a pretty standard routine because their routine revolves around us. We're their only world. And so it's up to us to really notice if there's a break in any patterns or a break in any habits, and then for us to look into that. But the great thing about depression in animals is it can be treated just like depression in people. And we use some of the same medicine in our clinic to treat cats and dogs. They can be treated for anxiety and they can also be treated for depression. And it's the same medicine. We use Xanax, a version of Xanax for cats and dogs, and a version of Prozac for cats and dogs. I'm pretty sure for both species, but and sometimes it can be a short term, just like in humans, and sometimes it can be used long term. Just depends on the circumstances and the health of the animal. But it's pretty amazing that the brain chemistry can be treated in such a way that we can improve their experience of life, just like we can improve our own.
And that's exactly what in our family we're experiencing with a dog who is much, much older, and it would be considered, our old girl geriatric, that those medicines that someone, a human, are the same of what
Yeah.
she's being given to make it so she's living her fullest, uh, best time in the she's towards her end of her life. So that's very good to know. Um, so there might be some people on the phone that on the line that would like to know about what is the process for someone to adopt from the Virginia Beach SPCA, and how much does it cost, and what does that look
Okay.
like?
So we have any of our adoptable animals at the Virginia Beach SPCA. Let me back up a little bit. So the Virginia Beach SPCA is independent, and that's just an important thing for me to say, because a lot of people think that we're part of the ASPCA, but we're not. We're not connected in any way, shape, or form. A lot of people think that the ASPCA is like the big umbrella national SPCA, and we're all little branches of it, but we're all independent. We're separate from Norfolk SPCA. We're separate from the Humane Societies, although we all share in the collective mission that we want animals to have homes and we don't want there to be homeless animals. Our mission specifically is around the elimination of suffering and the increasing of human compassion. So just as much effort that goes into sheltering the animals goes into educating the public, and also goes into providing affordable pet care through our clinic. So we have a pet clinic that's for the public, and a lot of people don't know that sometimes they think that we just use our clinic to treat our own animals, but it's actually for the public, because having a pet can be expensive. Vaccinations are expensive. If your pet gets sick, it can be expensive if your pet needs surgery. And so because we recognize the important role that pets play in our lives, it's very important that all people can afford to have a pet. And so that's the central point of our clinic, is to make sure that all people have access to affordable clinic care. So that's setting that aside. The Virginia Beach SPCA, our adoption procedures are also different from all the other organizations because we are independent from all the other ones. But any adoptable animal that we have, which would be a cat, a dog, and we have small animals, we just don't have any exotics or any snakes, or occasionally we have a bird, but it's mostly rabbits, guinea pigs, hamsters, mice, rats, and then the cats and dogs. But they'll all be on our website if they're available for adoption. So we have an adoptable animals page where all the pictures and their bios and how old they are, et cetera, are on our website. And then if any of them look interesting to you, then it's worth coming down to the shelter. Right now and throughout COVID, we've gone through a bunch of different versions of how we're letting the public come in, just as we adapt to the different policies from the public or from the government. And so right now we're just limiting the capacity in the building, but unless you're coming on a Saturday or Sunday at noon, there's not usually that big of a wait. So you can just come in, and if there is a wait, you just have to wait outside until there's room in the building. And then you fill out your matchmaker profile, and then you'll be taken back to either our cattery or our kennel, or our associates will meet with you and talk to you about what you're looking for, and then introduce you to some of the residents that that might be a good fit for your home. And then if you're interested in an animal, then you would fill out an application. We don't do any same day adoptions, or very rarely do we do same day adoptions, because we have to check to make sure that your home environment does allow pets, because the last thing we want to do is send a pet out and then not have it be successful, and for then that pet to come back, because each time the animal comes back, they deteriorate a little bit in their mental and emotional health. And so we want our adoptions to be lasting, long-term adoptions whenever possible. So part of the application process is just making sure that your apartment allows to have pets, or if you own your home, that you own your home, and that if there are any other pets in the home, that they're all up to date on their vaccinations, because we want to make sure that we're not setting any animals up to get sick. And so there's 48 hours for us to complete all of the checks to make sure that the animal can go home. And then if everything is approved, then we set up an appointment for you to come in and finalize your adoption, and then you can take your animal home. The only caveat to that is if your animal has not yet been spayed or neutered, because it's part of our, it's an animal welfare policy that all animals that leave the shelter are spayed or neutered in an effort to combat animal homelessness, because it is a never-ending problem. And so sometimes if you're adopting an animal that's too young to be spayed or neutered, which happens quite frequently, then we let the animal go home on a foster to adopt basis, where you would have the animal, but it would still be owned by the Virginia Beach SPCA until we would be able to do that surgery in our clinic. And then once the surgery is completed, then we would finalize the adoption, and the animal would be transitioned to your ownership. As for the fees, they vary depending on the species and the age. And so our most expensive adoption is a puppy adoption, and those cost $350. And the reason being is that they come with mandatory or non-optional, I'll say, training classes, because I mentioned a little bit earlier that when puppies are adopted, oftentimes people bring them into their home and they're cute, but they don't necessarily get the training that they need. And then a year later, they're an overgrown large dog with puppy manners that is very difficult to have in a home. And so we really want families and their pets to start off on the right foot, or the right paw, as we say, with puppy training classes. So that's where the $350 is. But again, the spay neuter, all their vaccines, their vet checks, they've been thoroughly viewed by, or thoroughly checked out by all of our staff, and to make sure that they're in the best health and the best shape possible. And so there's no other fees on top of that $350. And then if it's an adult dog, it's $200, I believe. They've just changed recently. Cats are a little bit less than that, and so on. And once you get down to small animals, they're around $25 to $50. The only caveat with pricing is if sometimes we get animals in our care that are relinquished to us, or that are transferred in a crisis situation where they need medical care that's above and beyond typical care in the shelter. And sometimes we have part of that. The medical care is covered by the Virginia Beach SPCA, and then part of that can be passed on to the adopter, but that's only under certain circumstances that would be considered above and beyond. An example would be, we get a lot of cats and dogs that are relinquished to us that have severe dental disease, because let's be honest, nobody likes brushing their cats or their dog's teeth. We're all told at the vet that we need to do it, but it's very hard to do. And so a lot of the times we get older animals in that have a really bad dental disease, and their teeth need to be extracted. And that's an expensive surgery, an expensive process. And so we have part of that is paid for by our Miracle Medical Fund, and then a portion of that is added to the adopter's bill. However, we do have a lot of people who contribute to the adopter side of things, so that that fee is waived for the adopters. But occasionally it changes a little bit based on the price. We do have discounts throughout the year. Every year around the holidays, Priority Automotive supports 3 local shelters on the south side and one on the peninsula by covering 50% of adoption fees as it builds up to the Christmas holiday. And so that always goes on in the month of December. And then throughout the year, we have different discounts. Just last week, in preparation for kitten season, we had 50% off adoption fees for all of our senior cats and our long-term residents, to try to clear out some space, because we're going to be having a lot of kittens arriving in the next few weeks, because kitten season is a very busy time. But I would urge you to check our website or to follow our social media pages, because we always post when we have discounts on those websites. And so you can make sure that you're in the know if and when they come up.
Absolutely. I'm absolutely obsessed with that whole puppy piece of the training, because we have some dear friends who recently got puppies that are not puppies anymore, but they didn't put in, and they're the ones who need to be trained, not the dog.
It's the people.
Yeah, the people need to be trained. So I think that's an amazing, I would call that an advantage.
Yes, we think so too. We partner with Zoom Room. We used to have our own training component in the building, but COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of businesses. And so one of the things we did is we really focused on the things that we should be doing, which is sheltering and medical care. And we partner with Zoom Room, which is right around the corner from our shelter, and they're awesome. And so with every puppy adoption, you get 4 training sessions with their Zoom Room trainers. And it's been great. We get a lot of really positive feedback from the adopters that their experience there has been really good.
I love that. Well, speaking of, we did have a question come through on the Facebook, and we had it here as well. Is we know that there are volunteer opportunities, and that's something we promote absolutely within our affiliate throughout all the community, because it just makes talk about your mental health being improved when you give to others, right? Give of yourself. But are there any opportunities for volunteering right now, and what are the constraints due to COVID?
We rely heavily on volunteers, actually, and part of the past year has been really difficult because we weren't allowed to have volunteers in the building, and it really showed us how much we depend on that sense of service from the public. Because I mean, right now we have 250 animals in our care. About 100 of those are out on foster, but the rest of them are in the building, and caring for, feeding, cleaning, medicating, bathing, all of those things requires a ton of work. And then to deal with customers on top of that, we just don't have the manpower or the woman power to get it all done without volunteer support. So we're just so aware of how critical it is that we have that. And we do have a number of different ways in which people can support the shelter on volunteer terms. First is working in either the kennel or the cattery. We use, you just have to go through a training, and you can either walk dogs, help clean cages, do enrichment with the dogs to help them get socialized and just a break from being in their kennel. And with the cats, it's basically cleaning and the same thing, enrichment, loving on them a little bit and making sure that their day is broken up from having to be in that space for such an extended period of time. And so both of those would have to go through a very brief training just to make sure that you're comfortable with the animals, you understand, our signage and our coding and how everything works. If you didn't want to work directly with the animals, we do have event opportunities. We love having VBSPCA ambassadors now that events are starting to happen again. We have a golf tournament coming up in a few weeks where we always welcome people who just want to talk about the mission and who are like communicate or being among people. We also fostering, I mentioned, which is a very important part of what we do. As I mentioned, we have 250 animals that are VBSPCA animals at the moment, with over 100 of them in foster. If we didn't have foster homes, those 100 animals, I don't know where they would be or what they would be doing. Oh, I see a cat. So fostering, you can help a couple different types of animals. So kittens, we have a relationship with animal control. Another distinction I should probably make is that we are very different from animal control. We are an independent, nonprofit, private organization that is not connected to the city. So we don't take stray animals, and we don't respond to lost pets. And if there is a lost pet, they go to animal control, which helps the public know that there's only one place they need to look should they lose their animal. But the relationship that we do have with animal control is that they transfer a lot of animals to us when they don't have space so that we can find them homes. Specifically being kittens, because there's so many kittens that are found at this time of year without their mothers, or maybe their mother's been, hurt or injured somewhere. And so these kittens that are young and way too tiny to fend on their own are brought to us. And then we put them out into our foster network, where we have a large number of people that help feed and nurture these kittens until they're old enough to be adopted. Like just yesterday, we got in a litter of maybe 3-day-old kittens that need to be nursed and bottle fed for 8 weeks. Well, not 8 weeks, for about 2 or 3 weeks until they can start to eat on their own. And that happens all the time this time of year. And so foster families are incredibly important, because if they were in our shelter, then that kennel space would be taken up by animals that aren't ready to be adopted. So we have to get them out of our building into homes where they're safe, so that we can have adoptable animals and give those animals a second chance in our building. So kittens are the most common things that we foster, but we also have puppies that are that we need to go into homes, often with their mom, or sometimes we split them up when they're a little bit older, and they just need to be socialized and engaged, because the sooner we start socializing our animals, the healthier they're going to be in all types of environments. So puppy fosters are also great. And then occasionally we have animals that are relinquished to us, or that come to us through any number of ways, that have a medical issue. My mom adopted a dog. Well, she started fostering, but ended up adopting, which happens quite a bit. A dog that came in that needed hip surgery and knee surgery. And she's a beautiful white, she looks like a husky, but she was a senior animal. And so in most environments, she wouldn't have made it out of the shelter, because the type of care that is required for a hip and knee surgery in a senior animal is not something that a shelter can usually provide. We don't have the time or the energy or the care. And so we need to get those types of animals into a foster home so that they can recover from their surgery. And then once they're healthy enough, we bring them back into the shelter, and then we find them homes. And so those happen quite frequently. And it's really great to see those animals get the second chance, because everybody adopts puppies and kittens, but sometimes it's those older animals that are a little more vulnerable that really tug at your heartstrings. And then the other type of foster that we have would be behavioral foster, where Some types of dogs do not thrive in a shelter environment, and more often than not, thus would be the working dog breeds that just don't do well in a shelter. And so if they're in a shelter for an extended period of time, then they start to mentally deteriorate, and that's really difficult on the animal. And so we want to get them out into a home environment just so they can get a break from the shelter for a little while, start to recover, and then we can bring them back in and try to get them a home. And so that happens a little bit less often, but it is a type of foster that we use. So if you're a dog person and you love working with special needs animals, we've certainly got the need at the shelter. So fostering, cattery, kennel. We also have a really special program. It's one of my favorite. It's called Visiting Paws, and it's our version of pet therapy. And so it's completely volunteer run program where we use either adoptable animals that we trust their temperament and their personality, or we use alumni animals. My mom's dog is one of them, and we have a few other staff members who have really reliable dogs. We also have a couple cats, but that's much less common because cats don't always love new environments. But what we do is we take these animals into either nursing homes or retirement communities, some types of behavioral health facilities, and sometimes we go to colleges during final exam times just to bring the benefit of animal companionship to people who could really use a little bit of joy for a temporary basis. And so we usually make visits at least twice a week with our dogs, and that's completely volunteer run, and it's definitely a feel-good experience to participate in. And then lastly, we have humane education, which humane ed has gotten a little bit quiet over the past years just because school has cut down. But we haven't been able to be in schools. We say that differently. But one of my favorite things that we do is we help reluctant readers feel more confident reading. And so it's typically offered to second graders. And what we do is we bring an animal companion to the school. It's a one-on-one relationship. And so the volunteer and the animal would sit with the reader, and the child would practice reading to a pet. It's a much gentler, kinder audience than, a group of their peers. And so it's won some awards back in 2006 and 2007, a literacy award, because it was such a new, novel idea back then. But we still do it to this day. And we hope that once schools are back kind of to a more normal rhythm, that we can resume it's called Listening Ears. And so that's another volunteer run program. So if you like kids and that sounds like something that would be rewarding to you, we certainly invite you to sign up for that because it's incredibly rewarding.
Well, that's probably my favorite.
I love it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. We had just a couple more, and then I know we'll probably wrap it up, but I love that you're accepting the volunteers. So we had a question about food, and there is a controversy out there: grain, no grain. What do you feed your pet, and what do you all feed your animals at the SPCA?
So we are incredibly fortunate that we are one of, I think there's just about 50 in the entire country, of a Purina shelter partner. And the Virginia Beach SPCA has been around since 1966. So we're one of the oldest shelters in the area. And so I don't know exactly when our partnership started with them, but we've been kind of grandfathered in, and we're really, really lucky. And they feed all of our cats and dogs, and they provide litter to all of our cats. So we don't have to pay for food. It's about a $400,000 a year benefit to us. So we are incredibly, incredibly fortunate. And so they also provide regular food for kittens or cats, but they also provide some of that prescription food for cats that have, kidney issues or digestive issues. There's a whole bunch of different foods that they provide that are really specifically designed to address a certain issue within your pet's body system. I can't think of the right word. And so we're really fortunate. I was blessed to have been able to go out to Purina a couple years ago and to tour their facility and to meet some of their doctors and to see what they're doing. One amazing thing that they're about to come out with is a food that when you feed it to your cats, it will decrease the human allergic reaction to cat saliva. Because what cat people are, when they have an allergy to cats, it's usually from when cats bathe themselves, this enzyme that's in their saliva that then sits on their fur. And it's usually, you can't see it, but it's on them all the time. And if you pet them and you love on them, or they sleep on your pillow, that same stuff is going to get in your face and going to cause you to react. And so they came out with this new food that when you feed them, after feeding your cat this food for 2 weeks, that's going to be eliminated, which will hopefully eliminate your allergic reaction to cats, which is so cool that they can do that.
Yeah, that's amazing. But I think it's unbelievable that I'm familiar with that prenup partnership, but that is phenomenal that you all have that, because that is,
Yeah.
talk about resources you don't have to allocate.
Oh my gosh, it's a game changer for us. And we do, a lot of people still donate food to us, because no matter how many times we say that we are fortunate to benefit from Purina, a lot of people don't know that. And so they bring us food. And what we do with that food is we put it in our pet pantry, which is a service that we provide to the community for people who are struggling financially. We want to make sure that they have access to food. So they just need to come to the shelter and talk to our front desk staff, and we have food that we can provide. It might not be the exact food that you want, but it's something that we have that we can certainly share to make sure that people have what they need when they're going through tough times. So we do take food. We just don't take any unopened food. So sometimes when people's pets pass away, they bring us all of their things, and anything that's opened already, we have to throw away. But if it's unopened, we just put it in our pet pantry and it gets taken away too. Given away to people who need it.
Oh, that's awesome to know. And speaking of, I mean, I take our newspapers to our SPCA. I don't live in Virginia Beach. And they all, every time I go into, do you all still need these? And it's always a resounding yes. Are there
Yes.
things that you could let us know that you're always on the outlook for, that
Yeah.
if we come across?
We always need blankets, sheets, and towels. And pretty much any shelter will probably tell you the same thing. I mean, we go through so many, we clean up so much stuff on a daily basis. So for the cleaning side of things, and then for the comfort side of things, I mean, there's nothing like a cozy blanket or something to curl up with when you're in an unfamiliar place. And so being able to provide bedding and comfy blankets or something for a cat or a dog to snuggle up next to is really important. So we go through them all the time, and we don't have enough laundry machines to keep up with what we have to do. And so we really depend on those donations to make sure that we have what we need to get the animals cared for and to keep the space clean and sanitary.
All right. Well, we just had someone pipe in. Kristen just said, did you say sheets? We're moving and we have a ton. So you did say
Yes.
sheets, didn't you?
I did. The only thing we can't take, and this is a good way to think about it, is if we can't put it in a laundry machine, we can't use it, because everything we have to clean. So some people would bring us pillows, and we can't use pillows because we can't wash them. Some dog beds and cat beds we can wash, but a lot of them, they just get a use out of it, and then we might have to dispose of it. But we do the best we can with what's given to us. But if we can wash it, that's ideal. We definitely take newspapers. We can always use bleach and cleaning supplies. On our website, if you go to VBSPCA.com, there's a tab with how to help or ways to give. And if you go all the way down to the bottom, it's our wish list, and we update that regularly. If there's something that we don't end up needing anymore, if there's something that we add to our list, it's always on our website. And right now, because it's kitten season, something that we need are heating pads, because a lot of the times these babies come in and they get put in their carrier, but they need to stay warm and they don't have their mom to keep them warm. And so we use heating pads. And so that's important as well. And kitten formula, it's, these unique needs, but they're all on our website. And so any way that you can help is greatly, greatly appreciated, because we can't do what we do without the community.
Oh my gosh, this is so great, Kate. Thank you so much for actually wanting to be a part of what we do. And we're so glad to be a part of what you do, because our affiliate members and the individuals, the families that we connect with every day, this is it. I mean, we're all pet lovers of some, whether you're a cat person or dog person, or that hybrid, both, or even there are other animals out there. I totally know, your fish, your birds. But we appreciate you and everything that you all are doing. And thank you for the amazing information, because as most of you know, our mascot for NAMI Coastal Virginia Beach is the llama, Lonnie the llama. And I'm pretty sure you might have a llama there. Do you? have a llama at the SPCA?
We do. I'm at home now and I don't have one here,
Yeah.
but we have them at the shelter and they're adorable. And when I learned that it was because they are known to carry burdens and they're symbolic of carrying burdens, it made me cry. I love it.
Mhm.
It's such a wonderful choice of an animal to have as your mascot. So we have them for sale at the front desk, and the donations that are coming in are just being split between our organizations. But I know that we've sold most of them.
Oh,
Everybody loved
of
it.
Lonnie the llama? Oh, how
Yeah.
magnificent.
Yeah.
That's so great. Yeah, they're really cute. Really cute. And I have custom ones made all throughout. You know,
Oh, cute.
we have an amazing volunteer, Jennifer Novotny, who can knit those things up like wildfire. They're amazing. So
That's great.
thank you, Kate, so much. And for any of you listening, either on Facebook or the recording of Zoom, uh, obviously Virginia Beach, SPCA, please check them out online. Go have a visit. Obviously, if you want to volunteer, their donations, or if you're looking for an animal, a companion to shake things up and enrich your days and nights, you know where to go now. Thank you so much, Kate. We really appreciate you. All
Oh,
right.
thank you so much.
All right. And thank you everyone for attending tonight. It was amazing. We'll see you next month for the program in the LGBT community and mental health and making things happen, keeping the dialogue going. All right. Thank you.